Good afternoon and welcome to Black Press USA's Fire. Today, our special guest is Princell Hair, the president and CEO of the Black News Channel, the nation's only 24/7 culturally specific news channel devoted to the diverse perspectives of the Black community. Princell has a wide-ranging and deep senior executive level experience in national and local programming for major broadcast companies, including NBC Sports, NBC Sports Group, Turner Broadcasting Strategic Planning Group, CNN Worldwide, CNN US, and the Viacom Television Stations Group. We welcome you, Princell Hair. And also joining us, of course, is our president and CEO of the Black Press, Dr. Benjamin Chavis. Welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thank you very much. Just let me start out, Stacey, on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, all of our 230 African-American owned newspapers and media companies, we just want to pause to salute Princell for his leadership of the Black News Channel, Black Press saluting the Black News Channel. If we ever needed a 24/7 Black television station, Black News Channel, it is now. Given what is going on in America, we have a global pandemic that's disproportionately impacting the quality of life of Black Americans and other people of color. At the same time, we have an epidemic of systemic racism. We don't have to spend much time on Wisconsin, but that's just a symptom. It's not an isolated incident. So I just want to say to Princell at the beginning of this interview that we salute this network. We want to work very closely with you. We're already doing some things and sharing information, but we want to be even more aligned with the Black News Channel under Princell Hair's leadership. A young brother who's had an enormous successful career already in the broadcast industry, and so we're all looking for greater things and impactful as people not only across the nation but around the world tune in to the Black News Channel.
Well, thank you, Dr. Chavis. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Stacey, for allowing me to participate in the interview today. I agree with you 100%, Dr. Chavis. If there's ever a time where we need a Black News Channel, where we are focused on us, stories being done by us, for us, now is absolutely the time.
Yeah, and Princell, before we get into your coming over to the Black News Channel, I just want to discuss just briefly what's going on, as Dr. Chavis put it, the very latest, just for our readers, our viewers, your viewers to understand or to know that just a few moments ago, the National Basketball Association players have decided to continue the season. We know that they walked out yesterday, a strike because of what happened in Wisconsin. We also know that, and this is just in that LeBron James has had advocated strongly to cancel the season, he and a couple of others, but others have spoken up and said that they believe that the platform is still needed. This is the way they deliver their platform. Other athletes, tennis star Naomi Osaka has decided to skip the latest tournament. Players in Major League Baseball and the WNBA have also staged a strike and have not decided when they are going to resume either. I know the Black News Channel will be all over it as well, but you just took over recently. Your plate is full with this. Tell us, Princell, what's the direction here?
Yeah, so the athletes taking the stand that they did sends a very powerful message. In the Black community, athletes, celebrities, it really kind of crosses over into they're the influencers in our community, and for them to take the stand that they did, I'm proud of every one of them for doing that. The NBA players have really taken a very thoughtful approach to all of this stuff that's going on. Every step of the way they have responded in some way. And I think the fact that they've decided now to continue the season is yet another thoughtful response because they believe that the platform is still relevant and important enough for them to continue playing. It's been a whirlwind of news since I arrived here, 45 days ago. And it just doesn't seem to stop. I mean, we have a hurricane now that is blowing through, southwestern Louisiana, and that's an area that obviously has some impact will have an impact on the Black community. And as we know, these major events like storms disproportionately impact our communities. We have the pandemic that's going on that Dr. Chavis mentioned before, that's disproportionately impacting our community. We have, there are 1 million people who filed jobless claims yesterday or today, I think it was, again, disproportionately impacting our community. Really for us, we're taking a look at all of these events that are going on, and we're just kind of taking them, one at a time, and really trying to drill down on what's behind all of this. There are institutional, systemic problems that we have to keep focused on and that we have to address. We can't just focus on the event, the horrible thing that happened in Wisconsin, another young brother gunned down by police. We have to figure out, all of the circumstances around it, but from the surface, it looks like another young brother gunned down by police. But we can focus on that event, or we can focus on the issues behind the event. And at the Black News Channel, that's really what we're trying to do, is just focus on those systemic issues and keep the light shining on those systemic issues until there's change.
Yeah, and and I guess this question can actually go to you and Dr. Chavis, because Dr. Chavis obviously is the CEO and president of the Black Press of America, and you're the president and CEO of the Black News Channel. How much pressure, for both of you, how much pressure is it to lead these precious organizations that are Black owned? We know that we know that when our viewers, when our readers look at us, they hold us to a different level, a higher standard than they would mainstream and others. Dr. Chavis and Princell Hair, I'd like to get both of you your responses. There must be a lot of pressure on both of you.
Well, since we are interviewing Princell, I will yield to let him answer first, and then I'll just compliment. I'm sure we're going to give similar answers, but you can go ahead, Princell.
Sure. I think there's a lot of pressure on our organizations to get it right, and to keep the pressure on in these situations. Given everything that's happening at this moment, I believe we are in a moment in time in which real change could happen, and it's really our responsibility to really shine a light on those things. And I welcome the pressure. There should be pressure. We should be, as journalists, as Black journalists, there is an added level of scrutiny and an added level of responsibility to get these stories right.
Exactly. And I'm just going to give a historical answer, then a contemporary answer. This year, 2020, marks the 193rd year of the Black Press of America, since Freedom's Journal was first published 1827 in New York City. So for 193 years, the Black press has always been under pressure. The Black press has always been a witness, but also of the news, but also an advocate of the news. We report the news, but we also make the news. What I mean by making the news, by making sure, as Princell said earlier, that we go deep into why this is happening, not just what is happening, but why is it happening, and how can we prevent it from happening again and again and again and again. We have to expose the systemic nature. So contemporarily, I join with the Black News Channel. Yes, our Black newspapers, we're the trusted voice of Black America. We're under pressure, but it's a good pressure. A diamond doesn't become a diamond without pressure. And I think that given the resilience, we've had hard times before, and I don't want anybody out there to let their spirits get broken based on the predominance of news that sometimes is negative, or the predominance of news that sometimes always talks about the disparities, always talks about the hearts. And we have to talk about the hardships. We have to talk about the pains. We have to talk about the miseries. But in the same context of our miseries and our pains and our difficulties and our oppression, we also strive for excellence. We also push the envelope. We don't, that's why I'm so proud of those basketball players. They put their whole careers on the line to make a statement. And their decision to go ahead and play, they will play now, but will get much more respect, not just from Black people, but from all people, because of their diligence, because of their courage. What John Lewis said, who recently passed, we all have to be involved in making good trouble. And the Black News Channel reports the good trouble. The Black newspapers report the good trouble and encourage a new generation of freedom fighters to emerge. So I'm no way discouraged. Yes, bring it on, because we're going to bring it on. We can withstand this pressure. That's part of the resilience of Black people, to be able to withstand the oppression and keep moving and keep achieving excellence in spite of the difficulties.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, it's certainly an honor to be on the broadcast with both of you. We're with Princell Hair, the president and CEO of the Black News Channel. Princell, when this opportunity is not every day, obviously, an opportunity like this comes along.
Sure.
What was your reaction? What was your initial reaction?
You know, the Black News Channel is a unique opportunity, and you know, I was here for the launch back in February. After I had left NBC at the end of December, I decided to take some time off. I got a call from a friend and colleague, Gary Wardlaw, to come and help them get this thing launched. So I came in February, helped them launch, and I left March 3rd, right after Super Tuesday, to just go back to my sabbatical. And I got a call from Chairman J.C. Watts in May, asking if I would be interested in coming back as the CEO. And it was really a no-brainer for me. You know, the opportunity to lead a Black news network, the opportunity to interact with and train the next group of Black journalists, which I think at this stage in my career is probably the most important thing that I could do. And the opportunity to really just shine a light on Black culture and the plight of the Black people, and knowing that Black people, brown people, and I believe that there's a subset of white people who feel responsible and are trying to do everything they can to fix this. Knowing that there's a group of people out there who need this. You know, when I decided to, you know, when I chose a career in journalism, you know, one of the things that I wanted to do was to make a difference. And, you know, along the way in my career, I feel like I've made a difference in certain situations. But now I feel like it's a much bigger difference-making apparatus, and that is the Black News Channel. If we're doing our job every day, we are making a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah, and Princell, when taking on this monumental task, because it is monumental, what were some of the things you identified initially that you felt needed to be implemented so the Black News Channel could continue having success?
Well, I think, you know, and Dr. Chavis is actually one of these voices. You know, we have so many different voices within our community. You know, I've said this in the past. You know, I grew up in South Florida, and you know, Haitian Americans are very different and have very different priorities than Southern Blacks, than do Africans, than do people from, you know, other parts of the world who are Black. So really trying to get all of those voices into our broadcasts on a daily basis. And we do it through our guests. We do it through people like Dr. Chavis who come on our air. We do it through other, Dr. Corey Hebert, who is our medical expert who can talk about, you know, some of the reasons behind why the coronavirus is, you know, so negatively impacting the African-American community. We have pollsters, Black pollsters who come on and talk about politics and trends in politics. These are voices that you don't hear in mainstream media. You don't hear these voices every day. And I think for us really differentiate ourselves from the mainstream, that's really what we have to do. Get those voices out there.
Yeah,
Exactly. One of the things I wanted to pose to Princell was the business side. I represent a trade association of African American owned businesses, and of course, the Black News Channel is a business. It's not a nonprofit. We've got to make some money. We've got to make some profit. You've got to have impact. You've got to have employees, keep them sustainable, and you contribute back to the community. So what I'm going to ask you is the role of the media for entrepreneurship, the role of the media for brothers and sisters who have a career path. I've heard you say you want to help raise the new generation of journalists. And a lot of times in mainstream media, it's very difficult. You know, it's not necessarily a glass ceiling, maybe a color ceiling, maybe a race ceiling, maybe an ethnicity ceiling. It may be a how you dress ceiling.
Right.
But my thing is, I think we both have an opportunity from our vantage points to accentuate the importance of African-American economic development. I know J.C. Watts, the chairman of the Black News Channel, and this was his dream for many decades and finally came to fruition. And thank you for helping get the network launched. And now you're back as the president and CEO. I think they made a wise decision. But I just want you to comment from your vantage point, because you've had a career in the media. Talk about the importance of financial sustainability, economic sustainability for Black-owned businesses like the Black News Channel.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Chavis. This is a business. It is not a nonprofit, and we have to, find our own path to profitability. Like any startup, that takes some time. In the media business and in the cable television business specifically, it's really all about distribution. And we have had some successes lately with distribution. We're going to be on DirecTV beginning next week on channel 342. We're going to be on Dish starting next week on channel 288. We're already on Spectrum on channel 206. We have you can have access to us on Comcast. You just have to say Black News Channel into your remote, and you can get the Black News Channel. So for our business, really, it's about gaining distribution. And that way, when you go into a meeting with an advertiser, you're bringing them critical mass. You're bringing them 50 million, 60 million homes into, to potentially view their particular product. As a news entity, covering Black businesses is hugely important. Again, we're the ones who are negatively impacted when things like the pandemic happen, when the bottom falls out of the economy. The Black businesses tend to suffer more. So shining a light on that and covering those kinds of stories are hugely important. And I think that that's the best way for us to support Black businesses, by really, focusing on them, talking about them, interviewing the business owners, and just letting people know, letting the audience know, letting the world at large know that, there's a thriving business. There are thriving businesses, within our communities. And I say our communities, I mean, all of, the entire community, no matter where it is. And just, by shining a light on that and really just kind of letting people know that there are alternatives to, that restaurant that you go to.
Yes.
Go to a Black-owned restaurant, one night a week. That grocery store that you go to a grocery store in a Black neighborhood, once a month or what have you. I think, to the extent that we can get people spending in the Black community, I think it just helps it lifts the entire world.
Exactly. And just a corollary, I believe, the advertising industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And none of the Black News Channel is not getting the advertising dollars it should be getting. The NMPA, we're not getting the advertising dollars we should be getting. But I just want to pose to you on air that I think we would be stronger. I would like for the NMPA and the Black News Channel together to approach Procter & Gamble, together to approach Target, because we spend $1 trillion. Black people spend $1 trillion in the American economy every 12 months.
That's right.
But yet a lot of that money does not come back in terms of investment, or in terms of advertising dollars, or in terms of the training, or the training for the new generation of journalists. There's a cost factor. I work with a lot of our HBCUs that are struggling. So I just think that if in the media we have an opportunity, that's why I'm so glad. I was so thrilled, because a lot of my newspapers said, "Man, why are you so excited about a Black news channel?" I said, because that increases our distribution, that increases our penetration, that increases our way of getting the messaging out from our particular perspective that's so important. And then we start attaching dollars to that. Even in this political season, billions of dollars going to be spent on these political ads. We got to make sure that the Black news channel is included in those political ads. We got to make sure that our Black newspapers are included in those ads, because in real time, even during this great difficulty, there's a tipping point, Princell. There are more white people carrying Black Lives Matter signs than Black people. I think that's a good thing. I think white people should be engaged, but now we got to get corporate America to come up, to stand up and present themselves in a way that where there's more equity in the financing of the distribution of content.
Right. I agree 100%, Dr. Chavis, and I would welcome the opportunity to work with your sales team on pitches to these organizations. When Viacom CBS goes into a meeting with advertisers, they're not just selling BET. They're selling BET, and if you want to buy BET, you got to buy MTV, and you got to buy VH1, and you got to buy CBS. Same thing with NBC. When they go into a meeting, you got to buy NBC Sports, you got to buy Spike TV, and you got to buy MSNBC. So I do believe that in those situations we're stronger together. And I think that we've focused a lot on content and building a content relationship. And while that is important, the sales piece of it is as important, because last time I checked, you're running a business too.
Exactly. A trade association of businesses, But I do think, like these other networks, if we go in together, I think there is a leverage that we can bring to bear with corporate America. And of course, it's just we're not asking for charity. This is business. It's a transaction. We plan to deliver. We can perform and deliver the metrics that are needed. We can perform. But I would also say, beyond the numbers and the metrics, we also have the trust factor. We're both now the trusted voices of our community. And there's a value to that trust that major advertisers need to better understand.
I agree.
Yeah, again, we're talking with Princell Hair, the president and CEO of the Black News Channel. He's given the presidential address. He says 45 days in office already. But Princell, with the increased presence of Black Americans in the media, why do you believe that there was no Black news network on television before BNC?
That's a really good question. And I think that, this was a vision that kind of hatched itself probably 15 years ago, and it's taken this long to actually get it on the air. I don't know why there hasn't been a Black news channel prior to. I think that I think there was a feeling that the community was being covered by the mainstream media. But you and I both know, Dr. Chavis, that was definitely not the case.
Exactly.
And the mainstream media has not covered the Black community the way it should. And it's funny now how you look at these mainstream media organizations, and they're all putting an emphasis on diversity initiatives and hiring diversity and equity and inclusion personnel, and that's all great. But why now? It's 2020. This should have been done years ago. So that's a good question, Stacey. I wish I had the answer for you, but we're here now.
Yeah. Right. And one of our viewers, Rich Davis, says he has the answer. He said fear of a Black planet is the reason there was no BNC prior to now. So, so there's the answer, Princell.
Right. I see it as an opportunity. I think that timing is very important. And I think in light of everything that's going on inside the United States of America, but I'm also in the global community, there's a transition where diversity and inclusion is not just a rhetorical concept now. I think diversity and inclusion now means good business. I think a lot of these companies that have been racially exclusive, I'm talking about even some of the media, are now seeing the benefit of having a diverse and inclusive workforce, but also having a diverse and inclusive portfolio in terms of investment. I think the future of the United States of America is going to be contingent upon how well there's room in the democracy, there's room in the economy, where we can begin to build wealth in our community, where we can get ourselves out of poverty, and not as a result of somebody else's benevolence, but we always worked hard. We've always contributed. But now I think there's a tipping point where we have to also talk about sustaining the business infrastructures. We all know there's a debate about systemic racism. Well, part of the reason why systemic racism prevails is because of the lack of ownership, the lack of decision making, the lack of infrastructure in our own communities that would mitigate against some of the institutionalization of racism. So we got a big job, but I'm thankful that we finally have the Black News Channel. I'm thankful that we've kept our Black newspapers alive, and they're still thriving in many parts of the country, even during this pandemic. So now I just think there's a lot. I would say it this way, Princell, there's much more opportunity in 2020 than we ever had before.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to focus on, how to secure and how to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are literally at our doorstep.
I agree.
Yeah, and we talked at the outset, Princell, about the COVID. We talked about the protests, the police shootings of unarmed African Americans. There are very important issues that we face, that we are facing. The census. The census has been shortened. It's going to end early next month, or some point next month. The count is going to end. What is the BNC doing to get the word out about the census, about the election? And earlier you guys mentioned Representative John Lewis. I'm sorry. How important is that legacy to keep that legacy going of the Representative John Lewis?
Well, I think it's hugely important, and I think there's a responsibility placed on our shoulders here at the Black News Channel to make sure that we continue that legacy and that we continue that dialogue. As for the election coming up and the census, we're doing stories on the election obviously every day. We're right in the middle of, right towards the end, the last day of the Republican National Convention. We have live coverage every night. We had the Democratic National Convention last week. We had live coverage every night. The guests that we bring on a daily basis, the political guests that we bring on, both sides, Republicans and Democrats. We've had a lot of guests on this week. Look, we are going to kind of go into hyper election mode. We're going to about 60 days out from the election, so we're about a week away from that, and you're going to see a really concentrated effort on our part to really make sure that we delve into the issues and not just the rhetoric that's going on both sides, but what is the plan? What is the plan for Black America if there's a Biden presidency? What is the plan for Black America if there's a second term of a Trump presidency? Those are the answers that we need to get before November 3rd, so that people can make educated decisions about who best to lead their community for the next 4 years.
Absolutely. And I think on election night, I've already heard a communication from Gary Wardlaw. I think we're going to be doing something together.
Yes.
Because it's so critical, the Black vote, and not only in the 6 swing states, the other states, I would say every state. Black people in all 50 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. And we need to make sure that we cover how our brothers and sisters are going to the polls in record numbers. Early voting starts early. So we're looking forward to working with the Black News Channel in the entire coverage of the 22 national elections.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Princell, I know that Dr. Chavis has long emphasized the importance of millennials and younger ones. What is the Black News Channel doing to also push the inclusion of young Black millennials and young Blacks in general?
Good question. So I have a room full of millennials and Gen Zers out there in my newsroom. So they certainly bring their own sensibility to our coverage. But look, we're the millennials and the Gen Zers. They consume our content differently. So we have tried to be in on those platforms where that audience is. We're on social media, the various, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. We are on the over-the-top platforms like Roku and Pluto and all of these, these tools, these platforms now that the millennials tend to use. So from the standpoint of being able to reach them, I think we've done a pretty good job at doing that now and going forward in the future. They have different concerns. They have different issues in their generation. So we really try and address those as best we can within our broadcast.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to, I know we're about out of time. I just want to end on a word of optimism. I'm very hopeful, and I see signs that the Black News Channel is emerging to be one of the major portals and entities for news for Black people, social media as well as broadcast media. And I just want to say that we in the print world and the Black newspaper world, we are going to be aligned and work together. I think I'm focused on these opportunities that are out here. And so we're very pleased that we're able to do this interview. We want to reserve the right with the remainder of the time to ask you to come back at another time just to give us an update, Princell, on the progress of the Black News Channel, because it's vitally important and of vital interest to the 50 million African Americans who are in the United States. I hope they get a chance to count all of us on the census. And I believe that hopefully, in spite of some of the voter suppression that's going on, that we will have a record turnout in the November elections. But we're certainly going to be there joining with you to cover the elections and to work on making sure that GOTV, get out to vote, really happens.
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you, Dr. Chavis. This is an important election. We have to get our folks out to vote. We're going to do all we can on our end, on our channel, to try and get that message out there and get people out there to vote. I'm looking forward to working with you on election night and working with you going forward. And I'm looking forward to getting our sales teams together too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that we can really kind of put some meat and some leverage behind both of our organizations, because I do believe that we are stronger together.
Absolutely.
Well, Princell Hair, the Black News Channel, we really appreciate you. Join us this afternoon at 3 o'clock. We have another special guest, Kathy Sledge from Sister Sledge. Princell, thanks so much. Dr. Chavis, as always, it's always great to have the boss. Everyone stay safe and stay well. We will see you later.
Thank you. God bless.
Take care. Bye-bye.